What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is July 22nd, 2024. It's 4:21 in the afternoon, and the market is closed. It's also my wife's birthday, who unfortunately is sick, sitting on the couch. Happy birthday, wife. With that said, we had some great opportunities today. Moves to the upside, moves to the downside, and then a lot of chop and sporadicness later on in the day. Some people played some things, some people didn't. You're not going to see anything on my chart after about 12:15 because that's when I went to lunch, and the people who were in my trading room had already taken all the trades they were going to take for the day, many of which were one and done this morning off of our call line scenario, which was a fantastic trade. And that's pretty much it. So the ratio in the win-loss in the community today is 5-1, which is awesome. And so let's go ahead and get into the chart, see what we saw and why we did what we did. And I'll also tell you that this video will be less than 20 minutes. So let's see if we can win for a change. Pre-market was a pretty steady trend to the upside this morning. So I was interested in calls right off the bat. The top 10 was extremely green leading into the open. In fact, I think everything was green leading into the open. So the only thing that was going to get me into puts was if we were able to break this trend to the upside. More importantly, on the Qs, which, as you could see here, we had a line drawn on the Qs, and because I don't trade against the Qs. Now, I will say this: today, my first trade of the day was a losing trade. Shared this with our group while it was happening, and I told everybody what I'd be interested in doing and what things I would want to see in order to get into calls or puts, just like we do any day at 9:25 in the morning. Our call line is a candle close above 553. If we get a candle close above 553, we'd be hoping for it to run up to 553.95, almost a full dollar run. Okay, or if we breach 552.23. then we would be looking for the puts down to the very next line. Okay, so much bigger room move to the upside than there is to the downside, but either way, they're all based off support and resistance. Now, the one thing I want to say here is that if you choose to be aggressive on your trades, the reward is that you will potentially make more on the trade, but the risk is that you're taking a higher probability chance of losing on the trade. Today, that was the exact case for me. I got into my trade, my put this morning, because the Qs broke their very long uptrend at the time. Now, I made this abundantly clear. I told everybody, guys, this is the only thing that would get me into puts. And if that happens, then I would be interested in buying puts. ADD at the time was moving down, so I felt like momentum was working, okay, in my favor. I was wrong. I got into puts because SPY got below its pre-market midline. Qs got below its pre-market midline. We had movement down on the Qs, but shortly thereafter, ADD started to push up. I should have recognized that the Qs didn't have much more gas in the tank to the downside. Ended up stopping out of this trade for a 12% loss. My contracts were expensive today, so that stung a little bit. Now, I got in, fortunately, at 9:31, and I was out at 9:34. I lost money, and that's okay. I didn't wait for the right reason to get into the trade. I played aggressively. I lost. It's a very simple concept. I made the choice in real time, and I did it. And it is what it is. So I'm not upset that I lost, because everything that I wanted to see normally to take that trade was where I wanted to see it. The only thing we hadn't done was crossed this line of support, which obviously would have made more sense and hopefully would have resulted in a win. Maybe. We don't know, because it didn't happen until it did happen over here. With that said, our call line scenario started to look really good really quickly. So we got stopped out of the trade, and then we were ready for calls. Okay, so the overall market this morning was very green. What we did this morning, for those of us who took it, thankfully it wasn't a whole lot of people, was a counter trend trade for all intents and purposes. Okay, we took it, we lost, we stopped out, and then we pivoted. right? We're going to pivot just like the Democrats did from Joe Biden to, I guess it's going to be Kamala Harris now. But with that said, call line, we got our first candle close above this line. And what did we get shortly thereafter? Well, we got a nice clean move right up to the next line of resistance. That trade right there was absolutely beautiful. That was a 63.4% winner, that trade there. And that made up for the losing trade that we took this morning. Obviously, the loser, if you kept a tight stop or stopped out for all the right reasons, could have been easily overshadowed by taking a proper entry on the calls, which is exactly what we did. So this was a beautiful trade to the upside. And like every trade in a trending market, we like to buy calls in a pullback if it's an uptrend, or puts at a pullback to resistance in a downtrend. Now, right here, we get a call during a pullback. Okay, so at 9:44, the Qs were sitting on support. Okay, ADD was already printing. ADD was still printing down, right? When did we take this? We took this at 9:45. Yeah, so ADD was going down, which again, I use ADD for confirmation. And at this time, if you look at ADD, it looked like it was bouncing in a channel here. Ultimately coming down through that support, but ADD was still very green on the day. Okay, 1,000 plus. So we got into calls. Some people, I didn't take these calls. I took these ones. And it rode us up to the pink line is the first exit. And then the next line high was the next exit. Now, for the people who were in these calls, many of which were still holding the original ones, I reminded them, I said, guys, Qs and SPY are hitting resistances at the same time. You might want to consider taking your profits here. We don't know if it's going to go higher. For those of you who want to stay in those calls longer, please move your stops up. We don't know what's going to happen. Shortly thereafter, we recognized that we fell back below support and then put in a lower high, looking for a potential counter trend trade. Now, if you're super aggressive, this is an entry here, because off of a lower high, we expect the support to fail, not hold. Again, support at this point is right here. We knew where it existed. If you assume that the odds of support failing are higher and you want to get in aggressively, remember we learned this morning that being aggressive doesn't necessarily mean we're going to win. You could have gotten in here, okay? The same time that SPY was pulling back to resistance. Me, I waited for the breach of this support off of a lower high and was able to take that trade down, for me, down to the pre-market low line, for others to this line here, because Qs were landing on support at that point. Either way, that ended up being anywhere from a 50 to 75% return, depending on when you got out. Even more so if you got out all the way down here. For me, that was my third trade of the day and done. Beautiful trades, and that was pretty much it on that. Other opportunities to get into these trades, one of which being we breached the put line. And yes, very small move, but it gave us the 20 plus cents that we normally look for. If you didn't take it, we pulled back during a downtrend to resistance. And I believe Qs at that time at 10:04 were hitting a resistance as well. They were. Guys, always try and line up a resistance or supports on Qs and SPY. If they're both at a level of resistance and trending in the same direction, that is an excellent time to consider taking a position. And what's good about this, and the important part of waiting for a pullback of any kind during a trending day or a trending moment, is that you have not only an excellent opportunity for a good fill, you have the excellent opportunity for a tight stop loss. If you buy at the break of a support during a downtrend, yes, momentum may carry you down to the next support. Problem is, if that support holds, where is your stop loss? Are you going to get in the same support you just broke? I mean, are you going to get out at the same support we just broke? Or are you going to wait for a pullback to another resistance? What are you going to do? So that is the difference between being aggressive or being conservative. If you're trying to do it properly and it feels unnatural, buying pullbacks, right? Buying puts while we are pulling back seems unnatural, and therefore many people don't feel comfortable doing it. I totally get that. I used to be one of those people. But if I can get confluence between ADD, and at this time ADD was still trending down, and Qs trending down, and SPY trending down, you bet you're behind that when we pull back to a resistance on both of these charts, I'm going to give it a go. Now, I got in because we broke support coming off of a lower high. That typically means to me that this support is not going to hold. It's going to break. Okay. So with that said, that was my third trade of the day and done. It was a very green day, not just for me, but for many, many people. Now, after we bottomed out down here, we continued to move up, and then we started to put in higher lows. Now, for those of you who watch my videos, you know higher lows are bad for puts. Lower highs are bad for calls. So when we're putting in lower highs, calls are not a thing for me. You don't have to get into puts, but just take calls off the table. Likewise, if we start putting in higher lows, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, it usually means don't buy puts. Now, the reason this is here is because we were wedging up against resistance. We talked about this way before it happened at 552.67, saying, guys, you know, if you're looking for a reason to get into puts, I wouldn't. I would be more interested in buying calls on support. If you want to wait for the breach of the wedge, or you want to wait or get in aggressively off support, this move is more likely to go up than it is down, statistically speaking. This isn't my opinion. This is factually what typically happens. This is what usually works. All we're doing here is trying to put benefits of getting into a trade in our favor. This is not a 50-50 chance. More than 50% of the time, this wedge breaks up, not down. You don't have to believe me. Watch it for yourself. We watched it happen on the Qs several times. We watched it happen on SPY several times, both up and down today. It happens all the time. All right. So the reason here was because we were wedging up, coming off of higher lows, off of support. Let's go. All right. You got in, you got out. Now, why would you have gotten out here at 1029? Well, because Qs were awfully close to their resistance. Okay. Then the Qs started to put in higher lows as well. We're expecting resistance to ultimately fail, not hold. We don't know when that failure is going to happen, but I can tell you that if we keep putting in higher lows, you're putting more and more pressure on the resistance. Sometimes the resistance holds and we do come crashing down, but more often than not, it doesn't, and eventually we pop out the top. Okay, that is why this second entry is here. Pull back to support, Qs pull back to support. We're looking for the move to continue up, and it did exactly that. And we went right to the pink line, which is equivalent to this here on Qs. Okay, now here's the problem. We are coming up to a spot on Qs and on SPY that has had a 0% win rate of breaking through these levels. I am always going to suggest that you consider taking profits when we get into a situation like this. We got to this line before on Qs and it miserably failed before. We got to this line before on SPY and it miserably failed as well. I look at that and say, I'm going to side with the fact that it's likely to fail again, not hope that it continues up. Now, if I turn into a guy who happens to be calls here, which I'm okay with, and I hope it's going to break up, the minute the word hope enters your thought process, please put a stop loss in. Please. You can make it wherever you want, because if you got in down here, no matter what you're doing up here, as long as you say to yourself, hey, I'm going to give this yellow line of support, it's fair chance. If it holds that support, I'll stay in the trade. If it doesn't, I'll get out of the trade. Either way, you would have stayed profitable. Some people might say, well, I'm getting out because the pink line is a stink line. A lot of people got out exactly up here because Qs and SPY were at a very strong resistance on the day. Easy peasy, right? Then we pull back. Again, still not comfortable buying puts. Right back up to resistance. Now, at this time, I had a contractor at the house, so I was away from the chart. But when I came back, I noticed we had a nice big drop. Now, there are some people today that have a put bias. I got 1 minute left before 15 minutes. And they saw this here and said, oh, yes, now's my time to get in. I don't disagree with your sentiment of wanting to get in here. We came off of resistance. The problem is we landed right on support, both on Qs and SPY right on support. Guys, wait for a pullback or wait for a close below support with the understanding that there is still room below that if you're going to get in. Okay, so the best entry on this trade was the pullback to resistance, a pullback to old support turned resistance. In you go, down we go. You just keep moving your stops down, or you have multiple opportunities to re-enter or enter for the first time each time we pull back during a downtrend. When is this scenario off the table? When we break the downtrend. When we break this downtrend, then you're no longer looking for puts unless we maintain lower highs and lower lows again. All right? With that, the last trade we found was once again a pullback or a wedge play coming off of lower high or higher lows, looking for the move to continue up. Now, this is a very tight spot, but we were putting in higher lows. We're looking for the move to continue up. Now, this got moved here. It's supposed to be there. And in on support, out at resistance, or in on support, out at resistance, whichever one. And then I went to lunch. And after that, we kind of just chopped around and didn't do a whole lot more late in the day. So that's pretty much it, guys. The majority of us made very good money in the first 30 minutes of the day. And that's the way I personally like to do it. And I would imagine most other people would like to do that too, because then, well, your workday can be over and you can go enjoy life instead of sitting in front of a computer all day long. But I hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, we'd love to have you. There's a link down below. First week is completely free. If you like what you get for that week, consider becoming a paying member. If you don't like what you get for that week, well, I hope you walk away with some knowledge that you didn't have before that ends up helping you become a better trader. That's really my goal of doing this every day. It's the only goal, right? And with that, I hope you all did fantastic today. Till tomorrow, I love you guys. See ya!